All right. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Roger Ballard. I have the honor of being CEO for Nuvision Credit Union, and we are just thrilled that you are here with us for our first Nuvision Insights webinar for 2026. This is our quarterly webinar series for our members. We feel it's important to provide members with direct access to credit union leadership through these webinars that we've been doing for quite some time now. Through these webinars, we share latest news about your credit union and provide what we hope you'll agree is valuable information and tools to help you reach your financial goals, and in this particular webinar's case, to help protect you from fraud attempts and such. So during today's webinar, we'll be providing insights about fraud, including diving into the latest fraud trends that we're seeing out in the world, should we say, and that are impacting our members and consumers at large. Give you some information about how to recognize these fraud trends and important strategies and tools to help protect yourself, your family, and your money. That's important to all of us, I know. So we're really glad you're here, and we hope that you find this webinar very valuable. Now, always when we provide these, we always try to give at least a little update on how the credit union is doing. So I'll start out, today by giving a little bit of a snapshot about how we did in 2025 as a credit union, and then also just give you some highlights about some of our key accomplishments that we're certainly proud of, and some things that are coming in 2026. And then we'll be moving into what I'd say are, the core feature of this webinar, and that is fraud prevention and awareness to help you be better prepared to protect yourself from the various fraud attempts that are out there. Now, as part of this webinar, we always offer the opportunity for you to ask your questions. And if you notice on that Zoom screen, you see that Q&A icon that such as on the slide right here. You can click on that and put a question in at any time. And then at the end of the session, myself and our presenters, and we also have some other credit union leadership who are participating today, we'll do our best to answer your questions. One of the things that's important is please don't include account or other, personally identifiable information in your questions, because that can be seen by others. So please keep it not specific, nothing private, just open questions only. So as I mentioned, before we get into our primary speakers, who I'm excited to introduce here shortly, I did want to provide a bit of a snapshot about your credit union, Nuvision Credit Union, and how we finished up 2025. Can't believe it's already February. It's, second month of the first quarter of 2026 already. But it's worth noting that 2025 was a positive year for Nuvision Credit Union, thanks to the support of our members. We have over 200,000 members and our over 600 team members. We had strong earnings, a little over $31 million. We love to make loans to our members, so we're pleased to end the year with total loans of just over $3.1 billion. Total deposits grew to $3.3 billion, and our assets have grown to $3.9 billion. And something that's always really important, from a strength and security standpoint, is our net worth ratio that stands at the end of the year at 11.7%. And that's notable in part because that's well above the 7% level that's required by federal regulators to be considered well capitalized. So you might say we're very well capitalized at that 11.7%. So a very positive year overall, again, thanks to the support of our members and our team members throughout this 2025. Now, some other things. There's lots of things we could highlight, but I want to just call out a few things for this last year. We serve a number of different markets in Nuvision. We have members in many states. So let me just start out by talking about our branch service expansion. We added 5 more locations in the Bay Area of California. It's kind of Northern California, some might refer to it. And that came about due to a successful merger partnership with Safe America Credit Union. So we're excited to have more convenient locations for our members in the Bay Area or who might be visiting the Bay Area. We opened our first public branch in Mesa, Arizona with a drive-up. That's the picture you see there on the screen. We're excited about that. We've actually been in Arizona, Mesa, Arizona, for, I think it's a little over 30 years on site at the Boeing plant. And this is our first public branch. So we're excited to be accessible to family members or our existing members and new members who will get to know us in the area. And we know a number of Alaskans spend some time, especially in the winter, in Arizona as well. We relocated our Abbott branch, which is located in Anchorage, Alaska. It was a small in-store branch, and it just wasn't large enough to serve all of our members' needs. So we moved that to a new location, not far from the existing location, but it's larger. It's a freestanding branch with drive-up capabilities and just much better suited to serve our members' growing service needs there in Anchorage. We also expanded the presence of what we call our Live Teller Connect, which allows us to serve members after normal banking hours by virtually connecting them to one of our expert team members. So that providing members even more convenience. We typically offer 12 hours of service for our Live Teller Connect services. And then beyond branch service, we also, this last year, we're really pleased to celebrate our 90th anniversary as a credit union. And just really proud. We started out in 1935 serving Douglas aircraft employees. And now we're serving over 200,000 members in communities all the way from San Diego to Fairbanks, Alaska, and many in between there. So very excited to celebrate our 90th anniversary. And one of the things we made progress on and will continue to focus on is improving the member digital experience. We know many of our members are demanding and really asking for us to make their digital experience more robust and even easier to use. So it's a continuous improvement focus on our digital space, and we're really focusing on how do we make the doing business with us through digital, say your mobile app, easier and safer for our members to do their banking. So some examples of things we rolled out this last year was early direct deposit that allows members to access their funds now up to 5 days earlier. Used to only be 2 days. So that was an enhancement. We also enhanced our member identification authentication process for enhanced security. And we added advanced security through Touch ID and enhanced encryption. I think you'll probably hear a little bit more about that in our presentation today, because a lot of security improvements there. And we also improved a deposit account opening process for small business members. Historically, that process to open up one of those new account, especially for a small business member, been very time consuming for our team and for our members. And because of some new technology partnerships and some great work on our team, we've significantly reduced the time that it takes to open up a small business account. So it's easier, and more members are taking advantage of that as a result. And then community, there's so much we can say. Serving our communities that we serve is so important to all of us here at Nuvision. Our team members volunteered in nearly 100 community events in the 5 states that we serve. And it's really something that they lead with hearts here at Nuvision. And we really focus on helping those in need. Another pillar that we call it is to teach financial literacy and also to honor veterans and first responders. It's really where we focus. So we're really proud of the positive difference that we can make through the communities that we serve, or in the communities that we serve, thanks to the support of our team members and because of the great support of our members as well. So lots we're excited about in 2025, a lot of positive results on the numbers side, and looking ahead as we are already in, as I said, to the second month of 2026, we're going to continue to keep our members at the forefront of everything we do here at Nuvision, continually innovating and improving the banking experience to make it more robust and make sure it meets your needs. We're really excited just recently as we were just entering into 2026 to receive a Best Place to Work award that will continue to invest in team member success. And that matters for members because it really allows us to give you great talent so members can receive the best service and expert advice. We talk a lot at Nuvision about having conversations with members that really matter, because when you have an important financial decisions, and want some advice, you want expert advice, and we've got an outstanding team that can do just that. We're also going to continue to focus on delivering a fast and seamless intuitive digital experience because it's kind of one of those things where there's always something more we can do. New technology, new features come out, new member suggestions, and so we're always looking for how can we make things easier, more robust in terms of the functions that are available, and faster as well. So some of the things we're specifically working on is improved navigation in digital. One of the things when you add more functionality, like you can do more in your app, one of the things you have to be careful of is can you find it? And navigate. Can you actually intuitively find it in your app or in your desktop, kind of browser version of online banking? And so we're improving the navigation so that members can customize their own view so that they can arrange it based on what they use the most. So we're excited to be rolling that out in 2026. Another example is we are looking to of making enhancements. We're looking to improve payment solutions to make it easier for our members to make loan payments. In some cases, we give multiple ways for members to make payments, and we want to simplify it and make it even easier. We're going to do that this year. And then I mentioned earlier about the improvements we made on small business accounts that we're opening up. We're also looking to expand more capabilities in our small business areas to make it easier, even for loans as well, and focusing on continuing our member contact center. Tens of thousands of members call us each and every month, and this is something we really focused on this last year. Really pleased by the progress we made to improve, lower wait times, faster, lower, faster average pickup times and such. We made improvements toward the end of 2025, and those improvements have continued in 2026, and we're looking to improve them even further as the year goes by. So those are just some highlights of a few things that are coming, and we're really excited because we really think it's going to make a difference, a positive difference in our members' experience when they do business with their credit union, Nuvision Credit Union. So I know why you're really here. You're here to hear about fraud and prevention, and I'm really excited to introduce Amy Marsalek. Amy is our VP of Enterprise Risk Management, and she's going to talk about fraud and just a little couple, one statistic I want to share, or there might be a couple. Protecting consumers, again, is very important, and we see a lot of fraud attempts that are going. You're about to hear more. According to the FTC and the federal government data, nearly 4 in 10 fraud reports now result in financial loss. So there's a lot of bad actors out there who are trying, nefarious acts, shall we say, to try to take advantage of the credit union, of individual members, of consumers at large through internet schemes and other ways. And this, according to that statistic, 4 out of 10, it added up to over $16 billion in reported losses alone. And that's just, on what they were tracking. Fraud prevention is crucial in today's, especially the digital landscape. I talked about how members want the convenience of digital banking, and some of the fraudsters are trying to take advantage and fool people to try to take advantage of them. So prevention not only protects individuals, but it also strengthens trust with our communities. We really look to raise awareness about the types of fraud that are happening. And how to recognize them. Amy's going to talk about that. And so that we can empower members to safeguard their personal information and finances. Because some of these fraud schemes are very believable. And we want to give you some tips about how to maybe spot them. So today we have actually two great presenters. I'll introduce the second in just a little bit, but we're going to let Amy speak first. And she's going to talk about, again, proactive measures that each of us can take to protect our money. So with that, I'm just really pleased to be here, to have Amy here with us. I think you're really going to appreciate the information she has to share, because she's not only going to help make sure you're aware of the type of fraud trends we're seeing out there, she's going to help keep yourself protected from these fraud attempts to the best of our ability. So with that, Amy, thanks so much for being with us, and I'll give it to you.
Well, thank you so much, Roger. And thank you to everyone for joining us today to talk about this important topic. In our last session, we had that back in June, that was focused on fraud. We focused on specific scams that were impacting credit union members at the time. And today's presentation is intentionally different. So you may recognize many of the fraud types listed on this slide. These are some of the most common fraud categories that credit unions see today. But what's important to note, however, is not necessarily the details of each scam, but the fact that this list changes and evolves. New technologies, new payment methods, and new communication channels continuously create new opportunities for fraud. So, a year ago, we were focusing on fake texts and spoofed phone calls. And these are still happening. But today we're seeing AI generated voices, realistic fake IDs, and impersonation that sound and look convincing. So that brings us to why we're shifting the conversation. Rather than walking through a list of scams that will inevitably change, this session is going to focus on how fraud works. The goal here is to give you tools that remain useful even as fraud tactics evolve. Today, we're going to talk about signals. That's the consistent behavioral and emotional patterns fraudsters rely on, and how recognizing those signals can help protect you before money ever leaves your account. Fraudsters today have the same goals that they had 20 years ago. They want to get your money. They want to get access to your accounts. They want to get control over your decisions, isolate you from help, or push you to act before you can think. Because the goals don't change, the signals don't change much either. A scam might look like a fake bank text one day and a fake employer call the next, but both rely on the same signals. That's urgency, authority, and pressure to act before verifying information. That's why scam lists can age, but the signals really don't. So again, a signal is that behavioral or emotional clue that someone is trying to control you. And if you can recognize those signals, you can recognize the scam, even the ones you've never seen before. Next slide, please. Thank you. The fraudster's playbook. So every scam, regardless of the story being told, tries to create the same conditions. Uh, these are deliberate tools designed to override your judgment and verification. Fraudsters are not relying on you being careless. They're relying on pressure, emotion, and urgency to short circuit your decision making. They create stress, they remove time, they isolate people from help. And understanding this playbook is the foundation for spotting fraud early on before money moves. So, core fraud signals. We're going to start with my top, and I say that ironically. They're not my favorites, but the two fraud signals that we think have the greatest impact, right? The first signal we'll talk about is urgency. Fraudsters want you to believe something bad will happen to you if you don't act immediately. Urgency prevents you from slowing down, verifying information, or asking questions. So, a common example might be a text or a call saying, "Hey, there's suspicious activity on your account. If you don't act in the next 10 minutes, your funds will be frozen." That time pressure is intentional. The second signal is secrecy. You might be told not to contact the credit union, not to tell your family, or that the situation is confidential. We often hear things like, if you don't talk to anyone else, or if you talk to anyone else, this will get worse. So if a situation falls apart the moment you talk to someone else about it, that's a major warning sign. Urgency removes time and secrecy removes help. Urgency and secrecy often appear together, and when they do, it is time to pause. So, next we'll talk about authority and emotional manipulation. So, authority is a powerful signal. Fraudsters often impersonate financial institutions, government agencies, employers, or trusted companies because authority shortcuts questioning. They want compliance, not conversation. Emotional manipulation works by triggering fear, love, shame, guilt, or greed. So once emotions are heightened, your brain's ability to think critically is reduced. This is not a personal failure, it's human biology. So, to illustrate this, I'd like to talk quickly about an ever evolving threat that is designed to play on your emotions, and that's AI voice fraud. So, today, fraudsters can clone a person's voice using short audio clips pulled from voicemail greetings, social media videos, or online content. And what this looks like in practice is someone receives a call that sounds exactly like their child or their spouse, maybe their boss or a family member, and it says that they're in trouble and they need money immediately. The voice sounds real, but the pressure, urgency, and secrecy, that's the giveaway. Hearing a familiar voice is no longer proof that a call is legitimate. Next slide, please. So here we'll talk a little bit about unusual payment requests and isolation. So I think the first thing we want to talk about is that legitimate businesses do not ask for payment through gift cards, cryptocurrency, urgent Zelle transfers, wires, or cash to keep money safe. Any request to move money in an unusual way should raise some concern. And then there's isolation, and that's another critical signal. Fraudsters may keep you on the phone, give you scripts to follow, or tell you the credit union is wrong or part of the problem. It's important to slow down and think for a moment because this behavior is not customer service. It's more like coercive control. Next slide, please. And this is a really important slide because I think even the statistics that Roger was quoting, they're very much underreported because people are ashamed and they don't want to let people know. So when we think that we see a certain percentage of fraud, we always take that through that lens of reported fraud because, again, a lot of people are not interested in letting people know that they fell for something. And it's important here for, at least for me, to remind you that falling for fraud is not about intelligence, education, or experience. Fraud works by creating stress, removing time, isolating victims, and manipulating emotions. Under these conditions, even a highly capable person can be deceived. Fraudsters are not targeting intelligence. They're basically targeting your nervous system. So understanding this helps remove shame and hopefully would encourage people to pause and ask for help. Next slide, please. So then comes the question, what does Nuvision do with these signals? When Nuvision asks questions or delays transactions or applies additional security steps, the goal is protection. It's not inconvenience. We look for inconsistencies, unusual behavior, and changes in patterns. These are the same signals that we've discussed just right now. And this is how fraud is often stopped before money ever leaves an account. When we slow things down, it's because we're seeing warning signs, not because we don't trust you. And often that pause is what makes the difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Great information. And I'm sure we'll get some additional questions toward the end once we let Lori, after Lori speaks as well. You covered a lot there. One of the things, that I was reflecting on, I was listening to you is, I could imagine somebody may wonder, so what is the first thing a member should do if they think they've been targeted by fraud or for fraud? What do they do? What's the next step?
That's a good question. I think the first step is to take a pause. Don't respond, don't click, don't send money, and don't feel embarrassed. Again, like I said, fraud works because it pressures people to act quickly. So taking a moment to stop is the most powerful protection. After that, you should contact the credit union, or if you got this from Amazon or your utility company, reach out to them directly using the number they offer on their website or statements, not the one in the message. That would be the first thing that I would always recommend that you do when you start to suspect that you may have gotten into a situation where you're being scammed or frauded.
Yeah, and I love that emphasis on, using the contact information on the legitimate website, not the one you may have gotten the message, because we know how the fraudsters try to get you. Then they sound like a legitimate Amazon or whoever, and it's not. So that's a great specific point. Speaking of kind of like trying to, you know, distinguish, how can you distinguish between these, we hear so much is fraud, and sometimes, you worry it's everything fraud versus maybe there's actually some things that are legitimate. How do members just distinguish? Any tips there?
Yeah. I would say that, to keep in mind that legitimate organizations are not rushing you or threatening you. They're not going to ask for your credentials. So it's really paying attention to what's being asked of you through that interaction. That will be the first, sort of red flag that goes up. They shouldn't be asking you to meet them somewhere, to give them cash or gift cards so that they can protect the funds for you. Basically, as we covered, fraud almost always creates urgency or fear, like act now, your account is frozen, don't tell anyone. That emotional pressure is the signal, and real institutions inform. Scammers will rush you. So I think that would be the first thing is to pay attention to what does it sound like their intention is? What are they trying to get me to do? And am I able to say, well, let me give you a call back? And are they comfortable with that? Because I can tell you and I can tell anybody in this call that if you get a call from Nuvision and you question it, we are more than happy for you to say, I'm going to need to call you back directly. Because we recognize that that's you protecting yourself. And I think any legitimate company should respect and appreciate that.
Great point, Amy. And you mentioned something I just want to dive a little deeper on and make sure everyone knows what we're talking about. You mentioned something about not giving out credentials. So credentials, I think we're talking about how you log into, say, mobile banking or desktop banking, right? We're talking about usernames, passwords, etc. And New Vision or really anybody legitimate would never ask you for your password or those credentials. Is that what you're talking about, Amy? Or you want to say
That
anything
is
more about that?
That is exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm also talking about credentials that might be your PIN number, right? If you get a call from someone saying, "Hey, we're calling from your credit card fraud company, and I need your PIN," no, they do not need your PIN ever to assist you. So you don't need to provide them with that kind of detail. And if they ask, suspect them.
Yes. So you can always hang up and then
Yep.
call if it's the credit union or whatever financial, call the legitimate number, using the official contact information on the website and such. So that's a great point about the PIN. Thanks for that, Amy. What about, you mentioned some about this whole AI scam. You mentioned, I think, like the voice impersonation. How can members protect their accounts from these, AI scams such as that?
So, and that's interesting to bring up because, just keeping in mind that just when we last discussed fraud in was about 8 months ago, there wasn't a really heightened concern around AI being able to do the videos very well. And I bring this up to emphasize for everyone how quickly this technology changes because we're now in an environment where, in fact, AI can do really convincing video images. Again, I just kind of push back, and that's really why we wanted to take the focus on the signals as opposed to the scams, because how you're going to protect yourself in this environment is going to be very similar. AI does make scams sound more convincing, but it doesn't change the fundamentals. So you still protect yourself the exact same way. Slow down, verify independently, never rely on caller ID or email appearance or a familiar voice alone. If a message tries to bypass normal processes or is asking you to do something that is unusual, that's your red flag. to disengage. And I think that that's something that is really important to focus on for any emerging technologies and fraud.
Great. Great advice, Amy. Now, I know we're going to transition over to Lori, but I know you're going to stick around because
Yep.
I'm sure we're going to have some questions. So great job, great information to share. Thank you for that, Amy. So next up, I'd like to introduce you to Lori Markshock. She is our Senior Vice President of Channel Experience, and Lori's going to discuss important initiatives and steps Nuvision is taking through our digital channels to detect risk and protect accounts before fraud happens. So, Lori, so glad to have you. Thanks for being with us, and it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Roger. I really appreciate it. Um, I am noticing that my image isn't popping up, but that's okay. Um, a couple of things. So Amy's presentation was fantastic because it talked about what our members can do to protect themselves and how important it is with the things that you can see. So for me, we're going to talk a little bit about what you can't see. So I'm going to jump into the next screen here. So she spoke about scams, phishing, vishing, and a lot of those other areas. What we're going to focus on is things you can't see, things that are happening behind the scenes. That includes data breaches, credential stuffing, which means people are getting our credentials behind the scenes and attempting to get access to our accounts, stolen mail, skimming devices. So I have the good fortune of being able to share what it is we are doing to continue to invest in digital to protect our members as we have always done. Good news is you know that you're protected at Nuvision. Our surveys tell us that you really do see that we are protecting you. I've also brought along my VP of Digital who got a bug, not a computer bug, but he did get a bug and he's getting over it. So we're conserving his voice for any questions that you might have. It could be more complicated because he is our resident expert. So how is Nuvision keeping you secure? So there is quite a few ways, quite a few things we're doing, and it really goes with three different topics: know our members, protect our members, and inform our members. So we find that with our members on knowing their identity, it's from the very start. When a member comes in, goes into digital, and a fraudster comes in potentially having somebody's identity, we've put some new tools into place that improve that experience to make the account opening safe, but also keep all of the fraudsters out. In addition, protecting our members, enhanced authentication, which you guys have probably received quite a bit of information around. It's a great investment that's allowed us to provide more security within the digital channel when you're doing banking with us. And it allows you to have control over that. And then last is informing our members. You've also heard about our real-time alerts. So we have made some amazing investments. And with real-time alerts, this allows we've had alerts in the past, and those were not live. They weren't coming as quickly, at the speed of the transaction or the speed of life that you're doing right now. So what it does is when a transaction happens, you can preset up alerts that'll allow you to be notified for any number of things. If somebody's attempting to change your user ID or password, if somebody's doing a transaction on your account. So I'm going to provide some additional details on that, but we're providing a ton of new safeguards, above and beyond what we've been doing to protect your money and your identity. So what is enhanced authentication? So right now, within earlier in the year, we set up this device that basically allows you to have a trusted device ecosystem. So we're moving away from a lot of the verification codes by text message and some of the other email authentications and allowing you to use your stored authorization keys. Devices are trusted by the user, and the digital banking activities are authenticated through your primary device using biometrics, stored authorizations, tokens, passkeys. So within that system, it really allows you to control everything that's happening within your account live. I am going to just jump back over here. Sorry, my notes just went away. So what makes enhanced authentication the right choice for Nuvision and for its members? So there's three things that, again, everything kind of falls into threes. Having full control over what your device can access within digital banking is critical. So as most of you've known that have gone into digital anytime recently, it took you immediately into select a trusted device. You have control what that trusted device is, and there is one primary device. It gives you the self-service option to be able to know what's happening within your digital banking profile. Is somebody trying to change your email address? Is somebody trying to change your phone number? Any of those other kind of measures that make you concerned, that there could be something else going on. We are giving you that access to information that I'll show you a little example of it in a minute. And then fraudster friction. The main thing is to try to keep the fraudsters out. We're giving you peace of mind. That is our goal, is to make it easy for you. We don't want you to have to do a lot of work. So we help you establish a process that gives you that peace of mind, but we want to make it super difficult for the fraudsters. So having a trusted device that automatically recognizes additional authentication on untrusted devices you will receive that information, so you can either approve or decline it. So if it's something you don't recognize, it's definitely going to be something that catches your eye immediately, and you can just decline that right inside of the app itself. So I think this is important for you to see, because if you haven't seen it yet, you'll know how easy it is. It comes through, these are examples on a mobile, but you also can do this on your desktop, iPad. And when an activity happens, for example, this one is, are you currently attempting to log in from a new browser? Well, that means a new system altogether, one that you don't recognize. Now, keep in mind, it could be you. You could have got a new iPad for Christmas like I did, but if you don't, you right here on the spot can say, no, that is not me. And immediately be able to block any activity that's happening within digital banking. I give another example too here, that is, are you currently attempting to process the following transaction? So you're really getting on the spot transaction activity, and it's customized to what you want to be able to be alerted on. So you can see this just like in our real-time alerts. Now, on the right-hand side, when you go into digital banking, I want you to be able to find this easily. So under services on the left-hand tabs, you will see alerts. And when you jump into the real-time alerts, here is an example of what that screen, you just click plus and it'll give you options all the way down to either opt in or opt out of that activity. So this is kind of a full circle, bringing everything into light. With the upgrade of it, our enhanced authentication has these solutions that improved the identification in real-time alerts. We're able to uncover any hidden attacks, data breaches, credential stuffing, stolen mail. And the other key part about this is it also protects our organization, and we can see if something is going on a larger scale. We have more insight for quicker responses, partnering with the risk team, partnering with Amy to make sure that we are able to take care of our members. And it's really about being proactive and not reactive in the process. So just wanted to give you some insight of some of the things that we're doing. Again, I'm going to have Michael Hayden jump on for some of the Q&A slides, but I think it's pretty important that you understood what it is that we're taking care of for you, what is all of the new information that we're bringing to you, and that we're available. I know there's been challenges in the past around call volume, where we had kind of a heavy call volume, and now we are ready to take your calls. If you have any questions around digital, just getting yourself set up, we're available for you. We also have chat, so you can do that when you're right in the system as well.
Well, great, Lori. That was really some great insights, and I'm sure we'll get some more questions. You said between you and Michael, I'm sure we can answer, or we'll do our best to answer all of them, but at least most of them, hopefully. So it really is impressive, what we've been able to do to advance and improve our ability to detect risk and protect member accounts before fraud happens. Few questions that come up for me, it's like I was asking Amy, some like artificial intelligence, AI related, thoughts, because AI plays such a prominent role in helping us defend. We talked about AI can be used by bad actors. AI also can be used for good. How is Nuvision leveraging AI tools to protect members from fraud?
That's a great question because the fraudsters are using AI. So it's important that we're leveraging technology to protect ourselves. So AI does play a part in our enhanced authentication. The security platform leverages AI at data point gathering. So it ensures that the person accessing the digital banking is the member who should be logging in. It was touched on a little bit early about jailbroken phones and SIM swaps, malware, where AI helps analyze this information instantly and it prevents access if a device has been trusted in the past. So it allows the decision making to go from like 20 to 30 seconds to 1 to 5 seconds because we know how valuable time is. And it is fantastic to be able to leverage AI in such a positive way.
Outstanding. Well, and earlier too, you mentioned real-time alerts. So just to make sure we're clear, how does the real-time alerts help fight fraud?
It's funny. I think you see alerts and you're like, yeah, that's nice, but they're often overlooked by users as unnecessary, but can be so critical in identifying unauthorized transactions on a member's account. So most people are familiar with the card alerts, but those that aren't the only transactions, there are many forms of electronic transactions which can be processed. Zelle, external transfers, all the real-time activity. We recommend that everybody sets up a minimum enroll in debit transactions under real-time alerts, because then their accounts, they can keep tabs on them real time because they know the activity that they're doing. So really real-time alerts is a strong piece of the puzzle that I think sometimes is downplayed.
Great. And, for those who might know, remind me on this, real-time alerts was one of the enhancements that we made last year. We've always had alerts. They just weren't always real time. There would be a bit of a delay. Is that right, Lori? Am I describing
Absolutely.
that right?
You are, in the past, alerts in a lot of places, they're this way, they're batched. And so they'll come in cycles. Well, that's not convenient for the individual. It's convenient kind of for the masses. And what we knew was critical is it needed to come real time when the activity was happening to immediately notify members of what's going on. So they came a little later than we liked. They were still very helpful. I leveraged them. But having it real time is just kind of like head and shoulders above where we were at. We're super excited about it.
Great. Well, and if a member is alerted, I know you gave, some examples to suspicious activity, what should they do? For example, should they immediately be changing their passwords or something else?
You know, um, our goal is always to have solutions that prevent unauthorized access. And even if you're receiving a notification, it means your login and your password have been compromised. We strongly recommend you go in, you change your user ID, and you change your password. We've made it very easy to find it within digital banking. So, yes, highly recommend that. In addition, you have to notify us or any financial institution that you're doing business with, because they can assist you if something's happening and you catch it early. You're likely going to be more proactive in preventing any further issues to come about. So yes, make the change and contact us, because then we can kind of help guide you through what next steps are that Amy actually spoke about earlier. So kind of full
Great.
circle.
Yes. Well, thank you, Lori. Great information. I know you're going to stick around to help with the Q&A along with Michael. And just again, for Amy and Lori both, just I hope you agree they shared some fantastic information. Appreciate them putting together this presentation for our members. Lots of great insight, lots of great information about how members can protect themselves and what we're doing to try to help protect you as well. So I know I mentioned we're going to have the Q&A. I see some coming in, although I haven't been looking at them yet. I will here in a moment. But we do have that Q&A icon. You can still put in, see a number of questions there that we'll try to get to as many as we have time for. This another thing too that sometimes comes up in these insights. People are wondering, how do I get access to the slides like after this, or I have a friend or family member who would benefit. We do record these presentations, so they will be available, and we'll send out link after the session. Plus we never know what questions we're going to get, so we do have some additional leaders who are available if needed beyond Amy and Lori, and then Michael, who Lori referred to. We have some of our other leaders and experts who are available to help answer questions depending on what they are. So let me see. Bear with me just a moment. Got to navigate a little bit to the Q&A, and we'll try to get to some of these questions. So, okay, I had a question, will the webinar be, and I didn't see this yet, be recorded and available later? Yes, it will, as I said. Okay, so digital is nice, but please know that not everyone wants to do business via digital, so please keep options open to all customers. Agreed, and we do that. Our intent is to provide members with options, and then the members get to choose. With that said, something else that comes up, and Amy, feel free to add this because you're more familiar with this. Sometimes we'll get, every once in a while, we'll get a member who maybe gets a new team member and they might be a little bit, I don't know, inconvenienced or feeling inconvenienced when we ask for ID. And such, because it might be a newer employee who doesn't know them. Please know that we do these procedures, and we're careful about asking questions even in that kind of branch in-person environment or over the phone, because fraud is not all through digital. It happens. Some people try to make fraud attempts, these bad actors, in the branch or on the contact center. So just understand, back to when we add friction, I think it was Amy and maybe Lori both talked about this. It's because we're trying to go a little deeper to really make sure that we're dealing with the authorized person on the account. So keep that in mind. Amy, I don't know, or anyone really for that matter, but Amy, if you want to add anything more, just because I know you're more familiar with some of the situations than I am. But I just wanted to emphasize, not only will we give members always options about how they want to do their banking with us, but we also know bad actors can try to take advantage of the branch or the contact center as much as the digital channels.
Yeah, you're 100% correct, Roger. And that is something that I think it's always important to reinforce, that we do take your security and your financial security and your personal security very seriously. And that does mean that sometimes we might ask you questions that you're like, don't you already know this? Don't you already know me? And it isn't any way a question of whether we trust you. It's a question of, this is how we demonstrate to you the care and concern that we show for your accounts and your personal information.
Great. Thanks, Amy. Well said. I'm just going to look. I don't know. I'll do my best here and then call. Sorry, I'm just navigating to get this a little bit bigger for me. Someone mentioned they had sometimes trouble contacting us, like on the phone. I think Lori and I both alluded to that. We did have some challenges with higher call volumes in 2025. As I mentioned, late in the year, and especially I've seen the metrics this year, we've gotten much, much better. So we, in essence, and it's on me. I approved additional resources for our contact center, for example, and then the team has done a great job of using those resources. And we look at the performance metrics in terms of how fast we're answering calls and such, and they are much, much improved. So we will continue to monitor that, and I hope you'll see a better experience. Sorry, some of these questions are a little long, so just bear with me. Someone spends a lot of time overseas. Please correct me, but overseas means I cannot download the Nuvision app or use it for my overseas location. I'm concerned about the enhanced security features. Access to my account online will require that I use a mobile app. Please advise how I'm supposed to access my account remotely if access is limited. It's a little longer, but that's, I think, the gist of it. I don't know, Lori or maybe Michael. I'm thinking it might be one
All
of
right.
you.
Hi, Roger. Can you
Hi,
hear me all right?
Michael. Thanks. Poor Michael's dealing with, as Lori said, a bit of a bug, but he's our subject matter expert, and we're glad you're here, Michael. And we forgive your coughing if it happens.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So this is actually a really good question, and a lot of people are probably wondering something similar who are overseas. One is the app is accessible overseas. What comes into play is the difference between our authentication methods. Previously, we were using secure access codes, which are the six-digit codes that get sent to you by text or by email. Can't receive text messages overseas. So then it makes it difficult to get in. Whereas with the new solution, you can use the mobile app because it sends push notifications through the app, and you would be able to authenticate yourself or other logins using the mobile app. However, if you are having any issues utilizing the mobile app, that's not your only way to set up the new enhanced authentication. The system supports both desktop as well as mobile or tablet. It does support passkeys, so you will have the opportunity to be able to create a passkey on your device if you have a home computer or a laptop. If it allows for biometric authentication, you can utilize the biometrics on your device or on your laptop. That's one of the reasons that it was a really robust solution that doesn't just limit the authentication to a mobile device, and allows you to continue to bank with us however, you feel most comfortable.
Yeah, we have quite a few members who do international travel and some even, spend quite a bit of time overseas and just different states from their home address. So we knew the solution had to accommodate that. So that's very helpful, Michael. And I don't know if it'd be you, Michael, or someone else. I'll let you defer. How can the members ask, how do I handle unauthorized transactions? If I notice something that's unauthorized as a member, or I think there's money missing, what should I do as a member?
I'll take that, Roger.
Okay, go ahead, Amy.
So, obviously, when you notice that there is money or just a transaction that you feel suspicious about that's in your account, maybe you just don't recognize it. We would always tell you to contact us right away. Contact us either right through our contact center. You can use the live chat feature, or you can go into your local office, whatever's closest to you and most convenient, and let us guide you through the process. We will ask you for information, and we'll probably ask a little bit for your partnership in getting this resolved because there's going to be additional information and questions that might come up. But that's really the crux of it, is contact us through whichever channel is the most convenient for you and let us know so that we can begin guiding you through the process.
Great. Thank you, Amy.
Mhm.
Lori, see a call center related call more about how we're, verifying information. I think you can see this question as well, I'm guessing.
Yes, yes, I
Yeah.
can. I saw that and I thought it was important to note that there are other security measures that are happening in the call center. We have also made a lot of investments around authentication in the member contact center. So behind the scenes, there's verifications. We can see where the call is sourced from. So when you're being asked questions that just don't seem like they're enough to really authenticate you, we are doing more behind the scenes that you're not seeing to verify where that call's coming from and who you are. So just wanted to let that person know, set a little peace of mind. Yeah, we asked some additional questions, but it was really tied back to some technology we're leveraging to source.
Great. Thank you, Lori. And then I'm hoping if someone else can help with this, because I think it was maybe mentioned in the presentation, but I'm not certain. Someone's asking, what is risk stacking? Was it risk stacking or was it something maybe similar to that? I don't recall. Was that Amy or Lori in your slides maybe?
It was probably mine.
Okay. Can you expand on what that is?
Sure, sure. So risk stacking and in the context of the presentation today, it would be like signal stacking, is the process of taking all of the independent signals or red flags that you've encountered, and maybe one of them isn't too alarming, right? Maybe there's one thing that's happening and it makes you go, huh, I wonder. But then you start to see that there's another one. And once you start stacking up every like little red flag or anomaly that makes you uncomfortable, there's usually a point at which, or a threshold you reach where you say, this isn't going to work for me, not through this channel. So it really is in paying attention to all of those little signals, all of those small anomalies that are coming up in that interaction that are increasing the level of concern or risk that you may feel is associated with that interaction.
Great. Thank you, Amy.
Mhm.
Another member is asking Amy, or maybe for whoever you might think, is just, are there known online sites that are risky? And there's so many online sites out there. I don't know that we have a short list because I feel like they can be created so quickly. But any advice on that about just how to know if a website, particular website, is safe or not, or what to avoid, for example?
Yeah, I don't, like you said, I don't think we have a list of sites that are necessarily, high risk or low risk. That's a little bit outside of my area of expertise. But I would say that anytime, what I tell my daughter, what I tell my husband, because he gets a little Wild West out there on the computer sometimes, is if this is a company that you have no familiarity with, that has you haven't seen reviews or known people that use it, that right off the bat always makes it a little bit questionable. And I like to go into my antivirus service and look for a scan on a website and also check on their websites to see anything that they might be reporting as high risk, just as the first thing I would do. But it might be something, I don't know, maybe Michael, if he's not coughing, might have some better advice for you. So
Thanks, Amy. Michael, anything to add?
One thing I would add is when you're visiting a website, is you're looking for that HTTPS, and that S is important. And so I've found in instances where people are even mimicking the websites that we have at institutions where they're trying to get you to navigate to their, copy of our website, you'll see the difference between that HTTPS and without the S, and it's that added security. So that's usually a red flag. And a lot of the browsers these days will pop up and notify um, of site certificates being expired and things along those lines. Again, those are also red flags when you're visiting new sites. If it's saying, "Do you still want to proceed?" This site certificate is expired. Look out for those. Walk back on those. Maybe do some additional research, like Amy indicated, would be some best practices.
Great. Thank you, Michael. And I see Pedro, you've got your hand up. Pedro's our Chief Risk Officer. Do you have something additional to share, Pedro?
I do, Roger. Thank you. Also, sometimes they'll send emails. So I know we're talking about the website direct, but sometimes you'll get an email. And to what Amy mentioned before, if the vendor doesn't sound familiar to you or you haven't done any type of business with them, careful when you click those links because sometimes you think it's just an email, we should be fine. Don't necessarily follow those links all the way through and through. Definitely go directly to that website, and to the points made earlier, definitely have those sites maybe searched if you have antivirus. Make sure your computer has proper antivirus because, again, sometimes just clicking on a link could result in other issues as far as maybe data being taken from you. So that's all I would add to that, Roger.
Great. Thank you, Pedro. Good add. I think we talked about, I don't know, Amy or Lori, I think we may have already addressed this earlier about if there is fraud, how do we report it? Or just how to report suspected scams to Nuvision. Would that be the same as just contact it any way you can? The branch, the phone contacts, whatever is convenient, chat, or would you suggest something else? I think that's what I heard you say earlier.
yes, if you suspect fraud on your account, if you suspect somebody might be attempting a scam, we are more than happy to get that report from you as well in case that's affecting any of our other members. But we would also strongly suggest that you reach out to the FTC, the Fair Trade mission and get a report to them. There's also the FBI IC3 report. So if you think that you've been involved in an internet scam, those are also excellent resources for reporting, even if you haven't experienced financial loss. So, you guys all listened really carefully to the signals, and you've been able to catch them every time. And that's exactly what we want for you. But if someone attempts, please do report those, because like I mentioned at the top of my presentation, these statistics are grossly underreported, and that makes it difficult for people to establish good programs that protect.
Yes. Yeah, we really encourage people, if they think they've been taken advantage or if they have, to report it. There's no shame in it. I know it can be embarrassing, but it's happened to so many, very sharp people. They'd never think it could happen to them. Some of these are really sophisticated. That's why we're trying to educate people for sure. I think one member just shared how they heard about a friend's father had a grandson phone and request not to tell anybody. So one of those type scams. I'm just scanning, I'm kind of watching time. I know we're getting a little beyond the hour. Let me see if I can scan a little bit more. If there's a call from a family member on a borrowed mobile phone that indicates they have their wallet or credit card stolen, how do we tell if that's legit or fraud? And Jamie, I don't know if you can help with that one, and I can repeat it. That is an interesting one. But I know there's a scam going around about, shall we say, about not letting people borrow your phone, but that's a different one, I think, than this situation. I see Pedro has his hand up. Maybe he's got one to help on this one.
I do. So the one I would say for that particular one, ideally you do want passwords, if you will, phrases within you and your family. I would definitely encourage, don't email it to one another. That's something you definitely want to have a conversation about. Additionally, if it's not the person that you're calling, most of the time those scenarios are, my son is in a different country. You may want to call the parent if it's a grandparent situation, or you may want to confirm with a friend. So you definitely want to take an extra step there, simply because, again, as Amy mentioned in her presentation, the goal there is to get you concerned, and then time is shortened. They're in trouble. Immediately you start to get emotional and you start to give money out. That's what we're trying to prevent. So slow down, stop, think. Ideally, if you can have a phrase or some kind of password with that individual, or something that only they would know about you, that's the approach I would recommend.
Great.
And if
Thanks,
I
Pedro.
can
Anything
add,
to add? Go ahead, Amy. Anything to add?
and that's all absolutely perfect advice. But the only thing I would add to that is that, like, one quick thing that you could do is let them know, I'm so sorry, the connection's bad. Let me call you right back, and try to call your loved one on their real phone number. So, that again, it's just that disruption to say, ah, I'm not 100%. And if it doesn't ring through to their phone, that still buys you that time to do the things that Pedro was suggesting by reaching out to other family members. But if there's a chance they might be lying to you, then you don't need to worry about whether you're being a liar. So tell them you can't hear them right now, and that you need to give them a call back because you're having trouble making it out. Call them on their phone number. That was what I would recommend.
Thanks, Amy. And Amy, I know what you're talking about. I thought of it earlier. I wonder if you could just expound on, why do we recommend members, or anybody, not allow someone you don't know to borrow their mobile phone?
There are probably several good reasons not to. But one of the things that you hear about is that some fraudsters say, "Oh, may I borrow your phone?" And they can quickly load, some software or spyware onto your device, and then transfer out your data. They can take control over your device. And the thing that we all have to keep in mind is that, years ago, somebody took control of your telephone. It was not that big a deal. But nowadays, we keep all of our information in our phone. And so it would be tantamount to handing a stranger your wallet in many ways. So I would always and that's what I tell my daughter. If you wouldn't hand them your wallet, please don't hand them your phone. You can offer to make a call for them on their behalf if you're truly wanting to assist somebody, but don't hand out your phone unless you're also willing to hand that person your wallet.
I like that. I think that's a good rule of thumb. Hey, Amy, before I forget, you mentioned like that FTC site and what I think it was FBI, ICC. I've already forgotten it. Is that available on our website? Are we going to be able to post those links somewhere for members to have access? Because they may be like me that they don't remember the detail on that.
We can certainly, talk to the team about getting those links hosted or at least referenced somewhere. And IC3, I think it's internet crimes. So that's what helps me remember the IC
Okay.
part. Not sure right now what the relevance is on the three, but it is the FBI's internet crimes reporting, and they really put together a lot of really good data to let us know what's happening out in the ecosystem.
Great, thank you. And I see one of our members, just got home and joined the webinar a little late, so they're asking, is it recorded? Yes, it's recorded, and we'll be sending out the link. I'm not sure of the detail about how we get that out, but I think if you signed up, you'll be in and put in your email, you'll be getting that out. Or if you follow us, is it Crystal or team? How would they get access to the recording?
It will be included in the newsletter.
In the newsletter.
And
Okay,
yes,
which is coming out.
end of month, but we'll have it up before then. And we will most likely be sending out a thank you message to anyone who registered
There
with
we
the
go.
recording
Okay,
link.
good. So just want to jump in and answer that. Lori, there's a question about ATMs and allowing tap. I wondered if you could speak to that.
Yeah, I know we've received a lot of feedback about that. And you'll notice if you've gone to any of our branch locations or any of our offsite ATMs that we've been doing a refresh, lots of new machines out there. And it's just for that reason, on top of some other technology, they're going to have the capability of the tap from the machine, which obviously reduces any potential skimming capabilities. And that is with the implementation of those new machines, we're targeting 27 to have those live, if not sooner on some of those newer machines.
Thank you, Lori. And then, since I know you're so familiar with the contact center, I see a question. Nuvision's gotten away from the MFA, which is multi-factor authentication, when calling into the call center. At least that was what they're perceiving. I think it's sort of a question. Is that right? And I don't know if that relates to what you shared earlier about some of the other things, the other tools we have in place. Can you speak to that?
Definitely. So we have invested in a lot of new technology. So ahead of when the call's coming in, not only that, we do have methods of being able to do additional, SMS, text authentications. But we also are working with the new system that we talked about today, integrating that technology within our phone system. So you can still use your phone as a primary method of authentication, even when you're calling in. So that is not live yet. That's kind of hot off the presses, very exciting. I know our call center is excited because it will reduce the time it takes to authenticate a member and to do it safely.
Great. Thank you, Lori. So a member's just noting how they're glad we don't take 12 to 16 days to make transfer funds available, because that was an experience somewhere else. Yep, that's we try to not delay any more than necessary. Although sometimes, again, sometimes you might experience delay, because it's that friction when we want to be confident that we're dealing with it, and it's not about a transfer, but it reminds me, I think it was within the last month, or maybe 2 months at most. I had a member reach out to me, and it was a concern about a wire that was delayed. And I looked into it, and our team was already looking into it. And the reason it was delayed is there was a bunch of, on our systems, kind of fraud indicators popping up. It's because the husband and wife who were on this account, they were each in a different state at the time of the wire to authorize it. And that was unusual. So we did the transaction, but that's an example of what we call where we add a friction, we add like extra questions or extra steps. And I think Amy got involved in that one, and it's for your protection. We want, especially for larger transactions, it's something we really are careful on because we really want to make sure we're dealing with the authorized member on that account. So just keep in mind, once in a while, there's going to be, some delays on things or extra questions because we just want to make sure it's a legitimate transaction for the right person. We may have to get back to some of these questions because we've got quite a few here. I'm going to just scan a bit and see if there's anything that we haven't that I could maybe just get to a little bit that we haven't gotten to at all. Some people are offering some suggestions about like spoofed emails, and somebody wants emails responses to their email, so we'll get that. And that's good. Sorry, I'm just scanning here. We'll follow up on all of these, but I know we're well over the hour. Differentiate. Someone else was similar on that kind of the overseas question that I think Michael addressed. We all did. Okay, some positive experience. How can we offer suggestions to New Vision? I think you can talk to anybody. We have a whole system that tracks, like if a member provides us, hey, we'd like this to work, or like even we'd like to see this different. If you tell any of our team members, we have a system where they can put a note and we'll hear about it. We have a whole what we call voice of the member, the team who are always listening for feedback beyond just the surveys. Let's see. I'm trying to think. So considering the growth of fraud, has law enforcement ramped up accordingly? I think they're doing their best. In some of these situations, we do work in partnership with law enforcement. And in fact, once in a while, we'll get contacted by them as a heads up that something's happening in a particular area. I don't know. That one hasn't come up, so I just wanted to mention that. It didn't come up earlier. So I don't know, Pedro or Amy, if you have anything to add on that. I just know I've seen some instances of that, and I do think law enforcement's trying to do their best, but it's as fast as things change, as Amy was talking about, it's a lot to stay on top of. That's why we all, in my view and in my opinion, we all want to take a part in protecting ourselves, all of us. Amy, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would first of all support everything you just said on that, but also when it comes to law enforcement's involvement, as Roger indicated, we certainly have worked in tandem with them and continue to do that whenever we can and when it's appropriate. But just to call back to about reporting it, um, they oftentimes aren't included until it's a little bit late for them to be able to maximize the way that they're able to support you. And that's just something we've gotten as feedback from them is, boy, we wish we'd known about this, a week ago, even a day ago. So I think that when we're looking to law enforcement to be engaged, that means we've got to make sure we're also being engaged with them. And what I can give you assurances is that the credit union is engaged with them at any time that it's appropriate to be. But we also would, again, highly recommend that if you feel like you've even just come across a scam that you want to report, do report it. That's what helps law enforcement know how to use their resources to effectively combat fraud.
Great. Thanks, Amy.
Mhm.
I'm going to wrap up. And again, I know I'm not getting to all the questions, but I'm again watching time. We'll do our best to follow up on the ones especially the ones we didn't get to. Michael, I see two questions that I think are good ones, and then I'm thinking others might have similar questions. So I'm hoping you can help with this. The first one is, what is the difference between a pass key and a password?
That's a really good question, Roger, and I'm glad we got to that one because I do think it's important. So as part of standard, I won't say standard, but most multi-factor authentications, you have a user ID, you have a password. It's something that you have to enter in. Yes, you establish it. Please don't write it down if you do. Just the best practice there, but it's something that's entered, it's keyed in, so it's something that's it's good to have, but it can be compromised, which, that's part of the reason we're having this conversation today. Passkeys is an extremely secure solution, and what it does is it utilizes, let's say, your device. Your device becomes your passkey. It stores an authentication. You get a unique device ID. You're not keying in a password. You're basically carrying around your security solution in your hand. And that's just using a mobile phone as an example. So
And that's
can
the
your
trusted
passkeys?
device we've been talking about, right? That's what.
Yes, yes, exactly. And that is that even on other devices, and even just not with our solution, passkeys are very secure. And the point of them being, created in the first place was to eliminate these potential types of compromises for secure access codes, passwords, where the device can be the key, where you can even have it externally. You can have it stored on a USB device and you plug it in and your passkey is stored on there and you can use it to log into not just our solution, but other solutions. So it takes it from being, secure to being very secure.
Great. Well, and speaking of trusted device, I'll end on this question again due to time. But I think again, I imagine other members might have a similar question, but I don't think we've gotten to it yet. Is until now, can I have more than one trusted device?
Yes, you can. So within the enhanced authentication solution, there's no limit to how many trusted devices you can have. However, the one thing I will say is you can only have one primary trusted device. And the difference between that and the others is while you're authorizing other devices to be able to log in and not receive the friction points, we'll say, or the step-up authentication of are you trying to log in from this device? Your primary device is where you will receive those push notifications that say a login is happening somewhere else. So those will only be delivered to a single device, but you can have multiple trusted devices. You can have trusted browsers. So there's a lot of options for you to make it easy to get in and out of digital banking.
Outstanding. Michael, I'm so glad you could attend the Q&A. We hope you feel better. Thank you so much for helping with so many questions. Amy and Lori, thank you for your outstanding presentations and also helping with so many questions. And to our members, thank you for choosing Nuvision as your credit union. We really appreciate your business. And this is part of the reason why we do this. We, again, want to provide you valuable information to help you protect yourselves, your information, your accounts, your money, both with us and maybe even with others. We just want to, again, arm you with good information and ways to watch out for those fraudsters that are out there. We just really thank you for attending, and please email us if you have additional questions that come up. Again, just no account numbers or the personal identifiable information outside of like just your phone number or emails. But you can email to nuvisioninsights@nuvisioncu.org. So Nuvision Insights at Nuvision Credit Union. .org. You see it on the screen there, and we'll respond to you. And then, as I mentioned, we'll be getting out, and Crystal mentioned, we'll be getting out the link to this recording, and you can share it with friends and family or re-listen to it, whatever you'd like. And then I just, again, want to thank you for joining us. So we hope you found it valuable. And if you ever have any feedback, we have ongoing, we typically do a couple, one or two of these Nuvision Insights, and sometimes, at least one, sometimes two, a Beacon Economics webinar as well. So be on the lookout for our next webinar. And if you have any ideas for topics that you'd like us to cover, we'll always email us again about that Nuvision Insights at nuvisioncreditunion.org. And a big thanks to the team behind the scenes, all those who are ready to answer other questions, and just the marketing team behind the scenes here who did so much work to make this webinar possible. And really a big thanks to them for all the work they did. And thanks to you for your membership. Hope you have a great evening. Hope you found this valuable. Thank you. Bye.